welcome to this latest episode of H2O Global News Stream. I'm Davey, and today I have a very exciting guest with me. And without further ado, I'm just going to let you introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Suhayl Zulfiquar. I'm the Chief Executive of a company called Datatecnics. Datatecnics are based in Manchester. We're a company that's focused entirely on prediction of water and wastewater pipelines.
Amazing. And tell me, what is your goal for your organisation in the water sector?
Well, the asset base, I suppose, in most developed economies now is, and when I say asset base, I mean the age of water and wastewater pipelines is, in many cases, over 50 years, 60 years on average. So we're looking at infrastructure that's getting towards the end of its useful lifetime and identifying exactly which mains are likely to fail. Using current techniques which rely on things like statistical modeling, or in some cases just waiting for pipelines to fail. They're posing real challenges for water companies as they're finding that the break rate, the number of pipelines that are failing, are going up year on year, with many utilities being constrained in terms of their budgets. So I think a lot of water companies are looking for a mechanism to understand what the state of their below ground infrastructure is. And we offer tools to help them do that.
And how do you do that? Explain that technology to me.
Yeah, so we do it, and I think that the really unique thing about Datatecnics is that the whole organization is focused solely on the prediction of water and wastewater pipeline failure. That's our sole objective, and I think what makes us unique in that regard, because there are a number of companies that are operating in this space, is that we combine in a very integrated way both the hardware and software elements. And both of those things are really unique because all the players in this space at the moment that we're aware of that are doing some great work as well are pretty much using software only solutions. So what that means is they take the data that water companies have available already, things like a pipe's age, a pipe's diameter, a pipe's material, where it is, and they'll look for a relationship between those properties and historical failure. So given a set of conditions, what's likely to cause failure? Some of the really advanced ones, and there are only one or two of these, are looking at hydraulic parameters as well, because obviously water companies collect data on pressure and flow. The issue that those companies have, however, is that those hydraulic measurements that are taken in water companies at present, for the most part, are pretty low in terms of their resolution. So the data quality isn't all there. So what does that mean? It means that in order to do the higher quality prediction of which pipelines are likely to fail, you typically need to improve data quality, because without that data quality, you can't make a high quality prediction. So that's really where we come into our own, and that's what differentiates us. So we have a whole integrated set of sensors that we can deploy into a water network, directly on the pipes into the subterranean environment, to monitor the water pressure. And those things, as a full system, are designed to take us from I suppose, lesser predictive capability to one that's quite complete and comprehensive.
And what are the benefits? I mean, it seems very obvious, but for anybody that is watching this and doesn't really understand, what are the benefits to prediction?
Yeah, so I think this is a really interesting conversation that the whole industry is actually having at the moment, right? Because I remember like half a decade ago when we started out and we started having some of these conversations, we actually had people inside of water companies come to us and say, well, if I know my pipeline's going to fail, what am I going to do with that information? I'm sure there are people that are still around that are, saying the same things. And our job isn't to be dismissive of that by any stretch of the imagination, because I think in some sense it's a very fair contention. Like, what do you do if you know that your pipe's going to fail? And it's interesting because it's really pointing to a cultural shift that water companies will have to take, right? So we live in this land of reactive maintenance at the moment, where a pipeline fails, many people get taken off their water supply, or the environment gets fouled as a result of a rising main bursting, for example. And then you need to send somebody out to fix that pipeline and put it back into service, and then everybody gets a big pat on the back. Obviously that repair needs to be done, no one's arguing that. But what does it mean to be able to say that something's going to fail? And what does that mean for directors who've got several £100 million budgets that they need to manage over a 5-year investment period? It means that if you can understand which pipelines are likely to fail, then you can prevent that failure from happening in the first place by running a proactive rehabilitation renewal program. And by, really importantly, and I think this is the thing that often gets missed from this discussion, optimizing the operation of those assets so that you actually extend the asset lifetimes. When you do those things, that results in an enormous cost benefit. We've using our data and then data that we've seen in academic literature as well, we estimate that benefit to be anywhere between 2 and 10 times the average cost of a failure. So, if you think about why you would want to do that, fundamentally, there is a bottom line figure that you can correlate to running a predictive maintenance strategy to a reactive maintenance strategy.
And utilities have the responsibility of looking after our water, and every drop lost is a drop we can't drink. And I love the idea of predictive. What's the biggest resilience you're finding to change? Because obviously everyone's sitting here saying, okay, that's great. You're helping people save money. You're saving water loss. Why are people not saying, yeah, what's the resilience? What's that?
Yeah, I think the reason that we go inside of water companies and have to have it, as I said, I certainly don't think by any stretch of the imagination it's antagonistic. I think, as is always the case with the advent of a new technology, it's much more like the reasonable arguments of like, why do we need this? What's the benefit? How does our organization move towards its strategic objectives better? And really importantly, now that we're moving into PR24, how will this enable us as a water company to ensure that we meet these really demanding performance commitments? So those are all really fair questions, and we have to be prepared for them. And that kind of dialogue usually focuses around, I would say, 2 or 3 key discussion points. The first is around confidence. Like, how can we actually trust that your predictive model is going to accurately make a prediction that we can take a very large investment decision on? And to that, we very simply say, you've already got models that are in place, you're trusting those. If we can provide a degree of transparency that's greater than those existing models, then obviously that's a step forward. And I think we've definitely got a mechanism for doing that. Perhaps now isn't the best time to go into that in detail, but yeah, that's key. It's transparency into how you're making the predictions that you're making. The other thing that I would say is really important is that when you make these types of predictions, they need to go to the right people. So the right people inside of the organization need to be aware of what the prediction is saying, and they need to understand, as I was mentioning earlier, how to action that in terms of a workflow. So in the case of Datatecnics, our prediction platform, which is called Foresight, has a number of different tools within it. One of them is just we predict this failure, and then we prioritize the failure. But then we have 2 other tools. One is called expected burst, and then the other one is a leakage finder. And in the case of, for example, the leakage finder, we built a workflow that enables the water companies to tangibly use the prediction that's being made in an operational way. So you're suddenly connecting this perhaps sometimes abstract concept of a prediction with something that's tangible day to day. And so, there's a lot of discussion that's being had, as I say, in a water company in water companies about how to enhance the usage of data and analytics, generally speaking.
Why the water sector for you? What attracted you to this sector?
Well, I suppose there is a both a personal and a professional answer to that. The personal answer is very simply that I'm very passionate about environmental sustainability. You know, I think water is this incredible resource that we all use that is so fundamental to every part of our lives. I was at World Water Tech a couple of weeks ago, and the CEO of the Environment Agency, who gave a great opening speech, he said that he was told at the start of his career that water gets everywhere, and it's very true, right? Like it seeps into every aspect of our life, and so I think there's something about the inherent importance of water that makes it really personal and really impactful, because I would like to see us as a society move towards a greater degree of environmental sustainability. So I think that's that piece. And then at a professional level, you know, I think our organization wanted to focus on the water objectives in terms of water efficiency and meeting the Sustainable Development Goals, primarily because when you look at the set of risks that the Earth faces, you know, the World Economic Forum publishes its risk report annually. And when you look at the top risks, climate change, of which water change is a fundamental feature, is always in the top 5 and has been for, you know, the last decade. So it's an important problem, is what I would say. It's an important area that we could do with very many more intelligent people working in.
That's one of the subjects which I often speak to people about, is how do we attract talent to this area? And by people watching these videos that are considering a career in the water sector, I think there is such a wide scope for the future here, and you're doing something that is extremely important. Any last thoughts that you can give the audience? One takeaway that you would like to give?
They really put me on the spot.
Yeah.
I think there's so many things that I could say about why looking after our water infrastructure is so very important. Apart from Sir James Bevan's comments, the CEO of the Environment Agency that I just mentioned, saying that, you know, water seeps everywhere, and reaffirming that point that it is fundamental to every aspect of our lives, and it must necessarily be something that we think about moving forward as we try to have a strong response to climate change, because of the increased risk of droughts, because of the challenges around resilience, because of the issues of water poverty as well in countries perhaps outside of the developed economies. Those things we know, but we could do with a greater awareness of generally. That's absolutely true. But beyond that, if we want to try and localize what perhaps people day to day don't really think about in terms of our water infrastructure here in the UK, the main thing that I would want viewers to kind of walk away with on the back of this is that water infrastructure is fragile. You know, it's not, we think that it's this thing that it's going to be around forever, that doesn't really require any work because it is out of sight and out of mind, you know, buried below ground. But the reason we get to take a shower without even thinking about it every day is because there are some tremendously hardworking, diligent people inside of water companies and the broader water sector who are ensuring that that is possible. And that really does take a behemoth effort. And what I would like the audience to kind of go away with is to say that if we want that to continue to be the case, and we want to have the resilience to drought and to climate change more broadly, then we really need to put a value on that. And when I say value, I mean we need to really seriously and sincerely invest in maintaining that infrastructure, because it is my very strong belief that those investments that are going into the infrastructure today, the water infrastructure primarily, are not there to the extent that they need to be. And that needs to be increased. So that would be kind of my swan song.
I just want to say thank you for choosing the water sector. We need a lot more people like you. And
very kind of you.
I'm actually really excited to see where you're going to go next. I probably could speak to you for hours, but unfortunately these are quick snippets. But I would love to dive into a conversation about digital water, democratization of information. I've just got so many subjects I'd like to pick your brain on.
I will do it next time.
Absolutely. But for now, I really do encourage anybody watching this to connect on LinkedIn, reach out if you want to know more about predictive data and how it can really change how we manage assets. It's vital that we take this seriously, and I appreciate your time to talk through how your technology is tackling that issue. So thank you again. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Abby. Very much appreciated.